The Embassy of the Dead, Chapter 30, The Embassy of the Dead. The road to the embassy was narrow and endless and wound its way across a bleak moor. There were no streetlights, no houses for miles. In the darkness, the campervan's headlights picked out the road in front of them and the stone wall that edged it, but nothing more. The passengers were silent, all consumed by their own thoughts. Suddenly, a white creature loomed in their path, appearing out of the blackness ahead. Good Morning braked abruptly, and Jake lurched forward, his heart in his mouth. A sheep was standing motionless on the road, blocking their way. Zorro hopped onto the front of the dashboard and snarled at the woolly beast. "It's okay, Zorro, it's just a sheep," said Jake with a sigh of relief, scratching the fox behind the ears. Good Morning beeped the horn and edged closer until the sheep reluctantly squeezed through a gap in the stone wall and disappeared. The campervan drove on, winding steadily through the darkness until Good Morning turned off onto a farm track that climbed steeply uphill. A couple of times the van failed to get enough traction and its wheels spun in the loose gravel. Eventually, though, the track levelled out at the top of the hill and then continued down over the other side, dropping into a wooded valley. It started to rain, a flash downpour that ran along the ruts of the track, forcing Good Morning to drive even more slowly. Up ahead, the headlights of the campervan illuminated a wooden sign that pointed from the lane down another dark track that seemed to lead deeper into the wood. "Wistman's Lodge," read Good Morning. "Ain't far now."
"And look," Cora said, the mark of the Embassy of the Dead is written over the sign. Can you see it, Jake?"
Good Morning slowed the van so Jake could look properly. Jake peered through the gloom at the sign. "What, like the one on the box?" He blinked. "I can't see it." Stiffkey grunted. "You might be sensitive, but you ain't that gifted, Jake. When signs are meant for ghosts only, they be harder to see. And you, as a member of the unlicensed living, be looking in entirely the wrong way for a hidden thing. You be looking for something in particular, rather than for nothing at all. But us ghosts and the things us ghosts like to hide are made of exactly that, nothingness." "Right," said Jake. "So if I look for nothing, then I'll see something?" Good Morning smiled. "Exactly. It takes a while to train your eyes to see something that isn't there, but I'm sure you'll learn quickly. You've got talent." Cora pulled a pretending to vomit face. "Why don't you try again?" urged Good Morning. "I don't see why he needs to see the sign. What we need is to get there," grumbled Stiffkey. But Jake ignored him and tried again. First he squinted at it, then he tried to focus in the distance past the sign. Nothing. Then he closed his eyes. It was dark. He opened them and his cheeks flushed as he found the others looking at him. Good Morning raising an eyebrow and Cora shaking her head in amusement.
"Embarrassing for you," she said.
Good Morning leaned across and ruffled Jake's hair before driving off again. "You still need to keep your eyes open, kid, even to see nothing. You'll pick it up now," he said, pulling to a halt at a closed farm grate. "Out you get. This jacket is from Savile Row and it's pretty muddy out there." He winked. Jake opened the van door and looked down at the deep mud. "Fine, but this is me paying you back for saving my life. We're even now." Good Morning laughed warmly and nodded in agreement. Jake jumped out of the van with a squelch underfoot, slamming the door behind him. Hoodie up and head bowed against the rain, he scraped open the gate. It was only then he looked up. Before him stood a building, or rather, it had been a building once, a grand building. Now Wistman's Lodge was in ruins, and through its window frames Jake could see the night sky where long ago the roof must have been. The campervan drove through the gate, mud splattering up Jake's jeans. He hopped back in and they drove on towards the ruins, pulling up round the back of the building where Jake saw an overgrown path leading into the dark woods beyond. "The Embassy of the Dead," said Stiffkey from the back seat. He took his hat off and bowed slightly. "We swear to protect the living from the dead and the dead from the living and uphold the laws that keep their worlds apart." "It's creepy, isn't it?" said Jake. Stiffkey frowned. "There ain't nothing to be scared of at the Embassy of the Dead, boy. The embassy be representing the forces of good. Jake nodded. Something someone had told him once sprang into his head. Don't get hung up on this good versus evil garbage. In real life and death, there's few that's simply one way or the other. It hadn't seemed like a warning. Was Mr. Sixsmith talking about himself? Or was he talking about the embassy? Good Morning turned to Jake. Now we're safely here, shall I take the box off your hands? I would be happy to deliver it to the ambassador on your behalf. Save you the earache she'll give you. She's quite a formidable woman. He smiled at Cora. I guess Jake's used to that, though. Cora snarled. Jake felt a burden being lifted. He'd brought the finger all this way. Surely Good Morning could now take the box. Yes, I guess that would be fine now. He began, reaching into his bag as he spoke, but Stiffkey's hand shot forward, pushing the box back into Jake's bag and interrupting. Remember, Jake, said Stiffkey, looking into his eyes, the one who digs the hole fills it, and now is not the time to be breaking more embassy rules. He turned to Good Morning with a frown. Surely you know that only Jake can take the box inside. Jake sighed. He'd almost gotten rid of the damned thing. A strange look flashed across Good Morning's face. Then he smiled. You do like to play by the book, don't you? Personally, I would say that particular rule is more about honour than something to be taken literally. Stiffkey looked shocked. And do you think now is the time to be dishonouring the embassy? You're absolutely right, said Good Morning. He seemed to think for a moment. Then he turned to Jake and placed his hands on his shoulders. I tell you what, kid, why don't you sit tight in the van while me and Stiffkey go and get us an appointment with the ambassador? OK, Jake replied. It ain't safe to leave the boy out here alone, said Stiffkey, taking a step closer to Jake. Don't worry, he'll be fine. Mawkins will be hours behind the scent. You know an unlicensed member of the living can't just walk into the embassy. I'll have to get a permit. We'll be 5 minutes tops. Stiffkey nodded reluctantly. Good Morning reached into his pocket and retrieved his phone. 1 second. He tapped out a quick message. What about me? Asked Cora. Good Morning picked up Cora's trophy. You can come with us, he said, shutting the lid of the trophy. Cora vanished. She won't like that, said Jake. I'll take the heat. Don't you worry, said Good Morning with a wink. See you soon. Promise. Jake watched as his friends disappeared through the rain into the ruins. He breathed a sigh of relief. Mawkins would go back to the afterworld. It was nearly over. He'd soon be home. And yet something didn't feel right. He looked at Zorro, who had been curled up asleep on the driver's seat. He was sitting up now, ears pricked, alert. His lip curled back into the beginnings of a snarl. There was something outside. Its reflection caught in the wing mirrors of the camper van. At first, Jake saw a small, dark shape slowly approaching. Then the clouds thinned. Jake could make out the figure of a man with a bandaged head, stooping against the rain. It was the man from Cora's school. It was Rayburn. He had come for the box. Uh-oh. Well,
he's going to be angry.
How did he find them? How did he find them, I wonder?
Yeah, I think that, what's his name?
Rayburn?
No, the other guy.
Good morning.
I think that Good Morning really wants the box for some reason. Maybe he knows that he was coming. That the guy was coming.
Do you remember right at the beginning?
I think Good Morning is acting suspicious.
Suspiciously.
Yes, suspiciously. So I think can't trust him.
Can't trust him. And now he's got Stiffkey.
It might be good that Stiffkey gave the finger to the wrong person.
Maybe. Yes, very interesting. Right, okay.
Well, not good for Jake, but
not good for Jake,
the rest of the Embassy of the Dead.
Good for the world.
Well, good for the world of the dead.
And the world of the living, because remember, Fenris and his crew were going to take over the world of the living and make everyone miserable. So, yes, good for everyone.